On the 26th of June 2024, a worrying event was unfolding on the Peachy Pixel Plays Discord server. In very short, their very own add-on, the Steed add-on, had been lifted, slightly altered, and was being monetized on CurseForge by a user called Bagek. In the span of a few short days, all of this would come to light, and not only the mod would be taken down, but also the Discord, which had been, unfortunately, associated with that mod and the self-proclaimed developer. In internet terms, this is a rather old story to be sure, but a party who was in the fray of the situation recently reached out to me and wanted me to cover the event to at least tell what exactly had happened. After talking with Peachy and Bagek, I am here to give the events as neutrally as possible. Mostly the reason I'm covering this is to bring awareness to how easy it is for your work to be stolen, which is why some precautions are necessary. But even if you do take precautions, someone somewhere might have the idea of using your work for their own benefit. So be aware, be cautious, and let's dive into the story of when a Minecraft add-on got stolen. But before we get into all of that, I'd like to thank Ashira for reaching out, for Peachy for being patient, Bagek for responding, the coder for being awesome, and my Ko-Fi supporters for being more awesome than the announcement of Exodus. Same guys who made Mass Effect, please be better than Mass Effect 3. To understand what happened, we first need to understand what a Minecraft mod is, what an add-on is, what is Swim, and what was the original Steed add-on. Minecraft, the stupidly popular survival game, has a large community that makes both mods and add-ons for the game. Mods or modifications are downloadable programs and code that changes the behavior of the game. Think of them as a sort of DLC for games. An example would be the Swim mod. Swim, which stands for Starworm Equestrian Mod, has been in development for a good few years and stands as one of the best horse animation mods for Minecraft. I did a video about them with the owner Hannah having some trouble communicating with her staff, but since then the mod has been doing a lot better and they have really taken positive strides in keeping the mod not only going but embracing the community as well. But this mod in particular changes the behavior and animations of horses in Minecraft and just changes a lot of the base game in order to give you a more equestrian type experience. Now an add-on in turn lets you customize already existing blocks and items in-game, mostly visual. In this case, the Steed add-on allowed you to change the coats of horses. This add-on would be sort of connected to the mod, which would then allow you to change the coats of the mod horses. But both of these mods and add-ons are written and designed by players and then loaded up onto CurseForge. Now the Steed add-on was specifically designed for and by the Peachy Pixel Plays team. Peachy Pixel Plays is, and I quote, a mod pack designed for 1.16 and 1.18 that specializes in farming, animals, and adventure with server-friendly mods that are additional to make your community thrive. This mod pack is fit for both single-player and multiplayer. The Steed add-on in particular added a lot more coats and mobs to the game for players to find and breed. It's also known as the Swim Addendum and has been in production for a good few months now. To be absolutely clear and fair, Peachy did not pay for this mod, nor did the coder ask for money. It would furthermore be available for free once released, but the idea was that initially it would be exclusive to the Peachy Pixel Plays. Peachy has also acknowledged that yes, once the code was released, all bets were off and the code would then more than likely be shared and reverse engineered. That is just the way of things when it comes to open source and free code. But at the start, the plan was to make it exclusive to her Minecraft server before it got released into the wild. Now let's get into the actual, drama. There are 5 characters in this story. Ashira, a staff member for Peachy Pixel Plays and a friend of Bagek, who wanted to write up her own code and add-on for another server, Swimmy, not to be confused with Swim, Peachy, the owner of Peachy Pixel Plays, the coder, who was the original creator of the Steed add-on, and the owner of the Swimmy Discord server, whom I will be calling Ghost. Now in February, Ashira, who was still a staff member for Peachy Pixel Plays, would get access to the Steed add-on, copy the code, and then hand it over to her friend Bagek. We'll get into the original conversation in a bit, but for now we need to understand the motivation. Bagek wanted to write an original add-on for Swimmy, which was another Minecraft horse server as I said. This code was supposed to be exactly like the Steed add-on, a code that would add new codes into the server, but Bagek wanted to make it unique to her own. Ashira would design the codes, Bagek would write the code. The idea was to essentially use the Steed add-on as a sort of baseline and learn the code to write their own, sort of reverse engineer it. However, they would not ask permission, not of Peachy and not of the original creator. The reason this is a problem is because code is creative property. It would be like tracing an image and then calling it your own without crediting the original artist and then making money off of that piece. Just to sort of back up this claim in an article, Software Copyright Essential Basics Explained, it states, enforcing software copyright. You automatically own the copyright for any software you develop. Once you've finished coding it, you don't have to do anything to own it. However, enforcing your legal rights on the software you developed is another matter. Another way it's explained is that you can see it like a book. Although ideas might be similar, we each have different styles and ways of writing books, making them unique to our own voices. So even if Peachy Pixel Plays never copyrighted the code, it still technically falls under their copyright. Moving on. In early March, long before the code was supposed to be reverse engineered and rewritten, one of the mods on Swemmy got a little overexcited and announced that Bagek were writing up a code for the server. This got the attention of Peachy's Pixel Plays because it was so similar to their own, and she reached out to Swemmy and inquired about this new code. And Ghost had this to say. After talking with Bagek, I thought it might also be a good idea to explain how we brainstormed the Swemmy mod to work, since currently we only have the brainstorming finalized. To be fully transparent, I have no idea how the code add-on the coder made works. No clue at all. What Bagek and I came up with is what we figured would be the easiest to code and use in-game. Nothing has been finalized or actually written yet beyond "this might work, let me try it." We only got started on this mod a few days ago. My friend is just very excited about it and wanted to share it via an announcement, which is how I assume you found out about it. I've been told through the Minecraft horse modding grapevine that a lot of people have been getting in trouble over this. To my knowledge, none of them had anything to do with the creating of this mod, at least on my side of things prior to today. The only people who have directly put their hands on Swemmy's mod code have been myself and Bagek. Never once did anyone else touch it. So Ghost was pretty clear that yes, they were making a code, but it was unique for the Swemmy Discord. But the fact of the matter is that the add-on had felt very similar to their own. So Peachy reached out to the only person on her team who had access to the code, Ashira. Peachy would ask why Ashira gave Bagek their code that was specifically written for Peachy Pixel Plays. I need to find a shorthand for this thing. And why she never asked permission. This was her response. Peachy says, Bagek has no access to the mod. You are the only person within the mix who has the mod, and you work with Bagek. Ashira says, I did not know that they were going to make an add-on for Swemmy. I explained it to the coder that we looked to see what the code was, but was not making it public. That we were going to code that way unless given permission from the coder. I can show screenshots between Bagek and I where we talked about it, and we were even going to offer to pay for it if the coder wanted. But the coder said that they wouldn't take money and they wanted people who make code add-ons in the future to do it for fun and free. Bagek would in turn claim that she never used the code and was only learning about it as seen here. She would be adamant that she never intended to use the code and that it had not even been opened. All of this was still happening in March. Bagek says, tell Peachy this, I didn't steal the code, I didn't open code, I didn't access anything, you had nothing to do with it. We haven't stolen anything of hers. I have privately messaged the coder and he has agreed to help me make my own code add-on. We haven't stolen anything of hers, and I have talked to the coder, about it all, and he doesn't mind as long as it isn't used for profit. Now, to be absolutely fair, Ashira had reached out to the coder on the 4th of March asking, and I quote, Hi, are you the coder that helped Peachy with her data pack? I was wondering if you could tell me how you coded that in. And then later on the 16th, Hi again, hate to be a bother. So Bagek and I figured out how to do the custom codes in-game, but we're wondering what command you used to summon them in regarding the horse variant. And finally, the coder would respond on March 18th. Yeah, I can help, but like Peachy kinda wants it to be a secret because it's a special thing for her server. I think so kinda ruins the magic and exclusivity of it. Is Bagek the one coding it or are you coding it? My friend told me that Bagek is the coder. Ashira says Bagek is. She has been able to find the way that you did it, but didn't feel comfortable fully figuring out the code unless you're okay with it. So here we can see the coder explicitly stating that the original code is a secret and supposed to be exclusive to the Peachy server. However, Ashira assures the coder that Bagek had not been editing the code before they got permission from the coder. The creator was a bit disappointed that the two hadn't reached out first before starting on this project, a sentiment he expressed to Bagek when the coder reached out to Bagek to ask her what was going on. Yeah, you heard that right. Bagek never reached out to the coder herself. The coder here makes it very clear that he doesn't want the code to be used for profit. And that's all that he asks. I want people to have fun for free as I did when I was still in my teens. And Bagek says, yeah, I completely understand. I hate people to make profit off something I did. And he says, thanks. My friends were very upset that it might be the case because I don't want this code to be a gate behind a paywall. After receiving this promise that they would not be using the code for monetary gain and they would not use a paywall to lock people out, the original dev gave them the okay to use the code and off they went. Problem was, Bagek struggled to write or edit code. She would often reach out to anyone to ask them for help in trying to understand basic coding, mostly the original dev. I will get into the coder's perspective a little later, but let's continue for now. Ashira created codes for the code add-on and Bagek supposedly reverse engineers the code to make it her own. Then on the 16th of June, the code finally landed on Swemi, and lo and behold, Bagek took all the credit for the code in the Swemi Discord, giving no nod to the original creator of the code. But it gets a little worse, because Bagek would release another code. This would be her own personal code that she would upload also onto CurseForge. And this code is where Ashira helped her with the textures. But here, no credit was given to either the original coder or Ashira. Now we're going to be focusing on the Swemi code from here on out, but just know that Bagek actually released two codes, and neither of them credited the original creators nor the texture artists. The code would also be added to CurseForge, and it was more or less suggested that it was monetized, but she also uploaded it into Modrinth, which did pay creators for their work. After people started complaining, Bagek would finally edit the credits and make it clear that 90% of the code was written by another dev. However, despite this edit, 90% was still too low of a number. When one of the mods on Peachy's place decided to check the code, they found that basically all of it was just a one-to-one copy, to the point that the Wings or Pegasus code, which was a placeholder for Pegasus horses, was also still in the code. It was a non-functioning piece of code. As we can see here, very minimal changes have been made to the code, and yeah, it was basically just a copy. In response to this, Bagek would go ahead and delete the Wings section in her copy code, as well as change steed to pony to make it more original. Okay, I've changed mine. It's pony now, removed unneeded stuff, code doesn't look like a one-to-one. The so-called Pegasus crap is gone. However, it was a little too late. People from the Peachy server had started complaining to the Swemi team, explaining to them the situation. This would result in the Swemi team discussing the situation, with one of them saying, okay, so here's the situation. I'm not really sure how to go about saying this, but Peachy and her team all recently reached out to us in a group to tell us their concerns. Unfortunately, there's an overwhelming amount of evidence to back them up in the case of how you've been, well, to put it simply, stealing code. Ashira included, since she has been not honest and backing you up throughout this entire process. I'm sure it wasn't your intention, but you definitely have gone against the coder's wishes by not giving him the proper credit, using the mod for profit, having posted it on CurseForge with monetization on, and you created more than one mod with the same code that neither of us had any clue about until after the Swemi mod release. They are all very upset, including the coder, who is the root of the mod, and he feels taken advantage of. To my knowledge, you've been advertising the code as yours, when 99% of it is copied from Peachy's mod. We've seen the code side by side in comparison, so there's no doubting that. Ashira was warned by the Peachy team that if she was associated with this code, it could result in legal action, because she was associated with Bagek and using that code. Remember, code is also considered original work and will fall under the ownership of the person who created it. Although the coder gave Bagek the right to use the code as a baseline for her own, copying the code outright with minimal changes still violated not only the agreement, but also the copyright of the code. Again, it's like asking to trace a picture and then just posting that picture online, just mirrored and with slightly different eye color. which does actually happen apparently in the art community. I am so sorry for you guys. Like you have it rough. After she was confronted with all of this, Ashira would apologize and would drop out of the drama until much later. And just to pause here, I actually made a mistake. According to Ashira, there were actually 3 add-ons being made. One by Ashira, one for Bagek's personal CurseForge, and then one for Swemi. The main issue was, of course, that Swemi had not been aware that Bagek was not only lifting the code, but also making multiple, and no one had asked permission before starting to hack the code, or draw a mustache on it so that people won't recognize it. The other point Ashira wants to make is that she had no idea that Bagek had already started editing the original code. Now, this is all fine and dandy and could be true, but the problem still remains. Ashira had shared a secret code from Peachy's place with a friend, and if the end goal wasn't to use this code for themselves, why did she share it in the first place? Just a thought. But moving on. Now this is where the creator of Swim, of the actual original horse mod, would come in. On the 23rd of June, they would make a post talking about Bagek's code and praising her for writing the code. Once again, no credit given to anyone else. However, shortly thereafter, the post would be deleted once the mods and owner became aware that the code had been a carbon copy. Bagek would go ahead and complain to Jenny, one of the moderators on the actual Swim server. This in turn would result in Swim warning Bagek that if this wasn't resolved, they would essentially tell everyone to pull their shit down. Their words, not mine. The reason we know about this is because Bagek said, and I quote, "I will laugh so hard if this happens. In the back of my mind, I hope it does." Bagek's add-on would be taken down eventually. Peachy's add-on would thankfully stay up, and in only a few short weeks, the entire Swimmy Discord was shut down. Bagek would also disappear, which leads me to the point where Ashira reached out to me. In October of 2024, yes, I am very late with all my videos, shut up, Ashira would send me some fascinating screenshots. I'm gonna read them out. Bagek, yeah, someone, if you make it your own code, Bagek, it's for a good cause, they'll never know. Friend, and use the coders as reference, you can just say you cracked it. Bagek, blah ha 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 ha. I will. Okay, time to turn it into my own code. And continuing on, Bagek, I'm confused. Ashira, for when it's on CurseForge. Bagek, oh, it'll be published on my CurseForge account. Ashira, huh. Bagek, since CurseForge is funny with those things. Ashira, cause I was gonna say you could send me the file and I can put it on mine. Bagek, I would, but CurseForge has this thing with mods that you can't publish them unless you're the creator. It's stupid as fuck. Cause I tried posting a mod that was made for me once and it got declined due to not being mine. You can do the description for it all and everything though. Just to be clear, this is absolutely not true. And Ashira also wanted to post it on her CurseForge because she had made all the codes for it. That's literally the reason. She just wanted the code linked to her or essentially on her page so that people can download the code and then, you know, use the I forgot the word. I really need to write out my scripts properly. Codes! I'm smart. As we can see by both these days in the conversation, these screens show that Bagek not only wanted to lift the code, but she further wanted to upload it to CurseForge. Even after it was requested, she not make money. Ashira's code is currently still up, but she is not making any moolah from that puppy, so it's probably okay case. So before I get into Bagek's response to this entire situation, I want to go into a message that Bagek sent Peachy on the 23rd of June 2024. This is the only interaction I understand that they had. I do kind of want to look into this before we get into Bagek's response, but yeah, let's get into it. Hiya there, Peachy. I'm going to be straightforward with this as I'm a person who doesn't like to delay sugarcoat it, so I apologize in advance if this comes off as rude or makes you upset in any way. I don't appreciate you accusing me of stealing your code or mod. The majority of my code was made using my own knowledge, as well as I have received help and blessings from not only the coder, who has seen the entirety of my code, but a multitude of devs and even Jenny. As for the Pegasus code, it doesn't even work, but regardless, I was instructed by the coder to keep it in. I have taken every possible measure to make sure my mods are not stepping on any toes. I have also found it hypocritical of how you have previously seemed to get upset about me, quote-unquote, dissecting, peeking through your mod, but once mine has been released, you have done exactly the same and have continued to search for excuses to deem me as a thief, and to put the cherry on top, going to everyone but me, where we can discuss the root of the problem like mature adults. At the end of the day, the coder is the one who created the code and put the mod together. Therefore, he is the owner of the mod and he can do what he wishes with his information, knowledge of the code. You simply paid for his services. No one in your staff team has done anything to betray you. Your entitlement over the code has unfairly hurt more people than you probably think. I'm not saying this to be rude, I'm simply trying to be honest. I'd like to talk things out and end the accusation once and for all. From now on, please message me if there are any issues that are directly related to me. And Peachy's reaction was basically objection! Sorry, couldn't resist. So, let's get into Peachy's response. Hi Bagek, first off, it's nice to finally talk to you. I was talking with the owner of Swimmy Horses because you made a mod for them and didn't brief them on the entire situation. So, if we're not sugarcoating things, please don't come after me when you have not briefed the people who are around you on the situation. Please look at it from my perspective if you can. I got a code made for me and it was stolen. I know you don't like that word because it makes you look bad, yes? The code can't be stolen, it can. As the coder has said and as Shira repeated, code is math, not art. So you took the only formula instead of making your own to get to the same solution. We have screenshots dating back to the beginning of March where you first got hold of it. Though Ghost reached out mid-March to talk to you about it, so there is proof in multiple ways of you and Ashira fiddling with it before the discussion of Swimmy came into play. The coder made the code, yes, and he gave you a few ground rules and you didn't follow them. Imagine having the opportunity to use code like that and disrespecting a whole set of people without care. No profit, change it up, and the code turned out to be 1-1 with barely any change. No mob name changes, the horses still have the missing no textures in the code, you uploaded it to Cursefor twice, allowed Ashira to use it, and didn't give credits to the coder anywhere. So respectfully, Bagek, you do not have the right in this situation to call out words like entitlement or accusations without taking responsibility for your own actions. The word betrayal is a little dramatic. My staff team is put together for business in mind. Ashira was demoted because she shared the mod, simple as that. I've only spoken with people who are directly related to the situation or developers you spoke to because you used someone else's code disrespectfully and my community is confused. I have a platform and this means I have to deal with it in a private way, which is difficult considering we were the only server to have made this achievement. What you told Jenny was a lie. You didn't tell her anything on the idea of the coder being the code writer and didn't give any credits to him. I will be messaging you with the terms as soon as the coder and the group are talking out a way to settle this. In the future, consider making your own code or switching up the one you were given to prevent this issue from happening again. The issue is we can't discuss this like mature adults, Bagek. You refuse to admit that what you did is wrong, and that is why this conversation will never make sense. It's done often, developers use each other's codes for other projects, but as I said above, you had every chance to make this right for the coder and for the people who worked hours to make this happen, and you didn't. Oh, that was a lot. That was the interaction between Peachy and Bagek. And there is a couple of other stuff that I will be getting into at the end, but for now, let's get into Bagek's response to the entire situation, because I did reach out to her as well. So my question was, essentially, all of these things had happened, everything had kind of gone to shit, and I sort of wanted to know, why did you do that? And if you didn't, what is your side of the story? Here was Bagek's reply. Swim announced a while ago that they were making a feature in which people could upload their own custom codes into the mod. I have my own tag add-on, so I decided I wanted to bring that update for 1.18 and basically do my own add-on, but for codes. I started working on it with permission of the Swim team. I quickly learned the code needed was very different and I was out of my depth. I did a lot of research and asked for help from my co-owner Ashira, but the only thing I found was that Peachy had her own one. It was for her server only, so there wasn't any code to reference to or a tutorial or anything, but I thought I'd ask her dev for some help. Ashira pointed me in the direction of the developer and we got talking. I asked Ashira to send a message for me on my behalf, since she was part of that server and such. Her and the coder went back and forth in conversation for a while. He told us code wasn't art but maths, paraphrasing, and that he couldn't claim something that has to be done only one way for it to work essentially. With that in mind, he told us what to do and said provided it was free, I could, quote-unquote, go nuts. Ashira gave me the mod file, and what I hadn't realized until a confrontation was that he intended for me and him to talk more before I opened it and started using it. I want to emphasize that I do understand there was some serious miscommunication and I made a mistake by not being thorough enough. I was lazy, perhaps, but I jumped the gun and didn't think about any legal issues really. I just saw him say go nuts and that he couldn't claim the code and ran with it. I continued to work on the add-on. I spoke directly to ask him questions when I had errors, which he helped me with. Eventually, thanks to his patience and generosity with me, I published it on CurseForge publicly. It was only then that I found out that a huge chat between creators such as Peachy, her devs, Ghost and their team had been created and were discussing the add-on, were furious with me and the like. I had no idea until I was given screenshots via Ghost. This sparked a whole lot of conflict. A lot of he said, she said. I don't want to act as though I don't recognize what I had done after these months reflecting, but at the time I was truly confused. I thought I had done a good thing for my fellow 1.18 users. I thought I had received a green light directly from the creator of Peachy's code mod, and I thought uploading it publicly on CurseForge was fine. I made a few bad mistakes in the process, like not crediting Peachy's dev in the description and files. Once I realized my oversight, I changed it, and if this gets uploaded, I'd really like to apologize to the dev, as that wasn't fair of me and was incredibly inconsiderate, as it wouldn't have been able to be done without him and his code. But a little later on from that, from a lot of he said, she said and whispers down the grapevine, I realized a bigger issue was a deal I had made with the server Swemmy Horses. I'll give you a short summary since this isn't the main event issue. What happened was after I had launched my mod, I became a dev for the Swemmy Horses and had agreed to creating a code add-on for that server. I had started coding the mod and they grabbed a few people from their server to make textures. There was an option added where you could purchase a custom code, which is you'd give a reference photo, whether it be your pony or Pinterest code, etc., and an artist would create it to be placed in the mod, which you would be able to use. I do wish I could have discussed this more with the coder at the time, but this did come under the paywall, which he stated. I'm still not 100% sure on this part, but I do believe in the group chat both of Ghost and her friend were told off about the paywall, and it was thrown onto me to deal with. It was quickly removed shortly after that, and people who had purchased those slots were given a refund. But to this day, Swemmy Horses is no longer an active server and has been closed indefinitely. Soon after, I rectified the issue with credits. The mod was still publicly and freely available as the coder asked, and I felt as though I had done nothing wrong. I butted heads with Peachy herself a bit, frustrated at her and her team, and reached out to all my friends and people I knew. Many of them cut me off, removed me from their teams, and didn't want anything to do with it. I do understand that now, but it stung at the time, and I was very frustrated. There are a lot of things I wish I had done differently. I shouldn't have been so inconsiderate. In my head, it was a small silly pony mod add-on for my friends and I to enjoy and to help out the people who use my mods. I didn't think of the gravity of any legal issues and that I had rushed into something without having a full understanding of what they expected of me. I made too many assumptions. Peachy's coder said that they couldn't claim it, said it was just math and go nuts, so I can just do that and go nuts. They wouldn't have told me if they were okay with me doing this, right? They wouldn't help me with my issues if they didn't like what I was doing, right? A lot of assumptions that I made that I stuck by it, but I do still think have some gravity in explaining why I thought the way I did. But I do now understand that there is a depth to details like this, to creators on such big platforms like this that I failed to consider. I made many mistakes along the way, but I really didn't mean to do them with ill intent. I thought I was doing a good thing with permission and was just excited about the whole prospect of the add-on. But that made me overlook a handful of red flags, and I really regret that. So then I reached out to her with a couple of screenshots, like the one where she says that she removed the pony part and that it was not a one-to-one anymore, and this was what she responded. I do apologize about the comments I made that no doubt leave a bad taste. It was immature, I was being extremely petty about it, but I do regret it. I have tried to fix my errors since. The coder was credited in the code credits, but I honestly don't remember if I simply forgot to on CurseForge or didn't due to the coder saying he couldn't claim the code as his own, but I corrected that. I changed the names, removed code, but I was pretty moody about it because I didn't really respond well to tension and that stuff. I do understand though, even though I accept responsibility of my actions, I just didn't go about it well, and I know I still do need to work on it. The screenshot, however, had a lot of conversations before and after that person saying bad crap, so it was a very charged conversation, but they've gone and deleted every message of theirs, so I can't exactly prove it at all anymore. So she goes on to say that she really understands that she did something wrong, she has suffered the consequences of her actions, and that she's not really popular or liked anymore. That was sort of the last message that she sent me. I did not get back to her because I felt like she had sort of explained how she felt about the situation. Just hang on for me one moment, I have a bird that is making me insane. Let's see if you can hear her. She comes and pecks at my window every day, especially when I'm recording. I want to kill her, but it's so cute. But in conclusion, Bagek does apologize for what she did, and I think this should at the very least be commended. She caused a lot of strife and confusion because she didn't, well, admit fault really, and it's frustrating to watch from an outsider's perspective. But it's not really about attacking her, it's about discussing how things can get really messy really fast when communication begins to break down, which finally leads us into the coder's perspective. I had a wonderful chance to chat with him, and I really want to share his sentiments about the whole situation. Because there is some truth to what Bagek is saying here. The coder really didn't have a problem with them editing his code. To start off, he actually started working on the addendum mod and the Steed add-on after he had wanted to edit the original Swim code and was firmly told no. He wasn't a fan of this, so he decided to write his own. When Bagek had first reached out, he really had no problem as seen by these screens. But he wanted to make sure that Bagek and Ashira would continue the free. Essentially, he wanted to make sure that their code would not be held behind bars or behind a paywall before you could enjoy it. And I quote, "Also, I don't want any money. I want people to have fun and ensure that the people after me have fun for free." This coder also further believes that code is logic-based, and to copyright it seems wrong to them, as anyone can come to the same answer that he did with a bit of patience. So yes, Bagek is absolutely right here. The coder didn't have a problem with it, and the coder really does believe that code can't be copyrighted. But there is a little bit more to it. This code had been specifically written for Peachy's Pixel Place, and Peachy had initially wanted to copyright the code. But the coder didn't want to do so because he simply had a different view to Peachy about copyright. And this is where I believe things got muddy. If the code had been copyrighted from the start, it would never have been shared. People are far more nervous to mess with things that have a clear copyright sign on it. At the same time, the coder didn't feel this was right because he didn't want other people to run into the same wall he did when he wanted to edit the Swim code. It was a clash of views, and that's where everything started to go downhill. Something else to note is that although the coder did not ask for any money from Peachy for the code, it was still considered a gift for her server. So, technically, it would fall under Peachy's ownership, seeing as it was gifted to her, by the coder. I just wanted to add that because just because money wasn't involved in the transaction, that doesn't mean no contract was made between the coder and Peachy. Now, with all this added context included, I still feel that if we look at the screens and we look at what was being said overall, I think it is easy to conclude that Bagek and Ashira did plagiarize the work. And from her response, I don't feel like Bagek was really taking accountability for what she had done. It sort of felt like she was shoving it all on the coder, which is absolutely not fair. Because yes, although the coder was very open and nice and has a kind of strange idea about copyright, it feels like that his niceness was sort of taken advantage of. But this all sort of raised a question for me. Why is it so difficult for people who plagiarize or steal to admit they did so? It's a common theme. People who have been caught with their hands in the cookie jar are usually adamant that they didn't do it, or there is some reasonable explanation, even if that explanation is that the cookie jar wrapped itself around your hand and you've been stuck there for an hour eating cookies. But in an article from Psych, Why So Many Plagiarists Are in Denial About What They Did Wrong, they do say the following. Being guilty or accused of plagiarism is a difficult thing to accept. It feels as if it's a mark against one's character. After all, plagiarism is usually treated as a matter of dishonesty or a failure of integrity. These character attributions do not fit well with our own conceptions of ourselves as good people. In a study published in 2013, participants were less likely to cheat in an activity if they were instructed not to be a cheater, compared with if they were simply instructed not to cheat. People don't want to think of themselves as cheaters or plagiarizers. In order to maintain a decent self-image, people tell themselves and others stories about the missing citation or quotation marks that neglect the series of intentional steps that got them there. Scholars who specialize in academic plagiarism say that almost all professional researchers who are investigated for plagiarism defend themselves by denying intent. The idea of "I didn't mean to" as a defense against plagiarism reflects, I think, a deep human tendency to want to hold onto a belief in our own innate goodness. End quote. And yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with this. If we look at Bagek's response, we see this in action. I didn't mean to, I wasn't aware, I misunderstood, there was miscommunication. All of this points to a person who is shifting the responsibility of their actions. Unfortunately, by shifting it, it must fall onto someone. And in this case, it falls to the coder, and like I said, I just don't agree. However, we have to admit that we all struggle to admit when we're wrong. When we are the villain in the argument or situation, we will find reasons for why we did what we did or what was the outside influence that made us do it. Because actually admitting that we are possibly just villains is a really difficult thing to do. We want to be heroes. So, in closing, yes, I do think Bagek did steal the code. I also understand why she struggles to admit fault, but as long as, she grows from this, then it will get better for all involved. However, with that being said, try to keep your work safe, no matter if it's code, art, writing, anything. Take pride in it and be willing to tell people off for stealing, because your time and effort has value. And also, don't record when birds are around.